All right, today we want to talk about, like buying insurance isn't the sexiest purchase out there, but it is so important to ensure that you are not underinsured. So let's talk about a few ways to make sure that you have enough insurance, because you don't need insurance until you really need it. So we want to make sure if you do need it, that you've got the right amount. So one of the things, I know we have some clients that have bought some homes for cash and they've gone to get homeowners insurance and they feel like they're not getting adequate insurance should there be a fire or some sort of significant damage to the home. So how do you really ensure that you have the right amount of insurance for your structure if something were to happen?
Sure. All insurance companies or agents, they use a calculator to determine what it's going to cost to rebuild it. And those calculators have some preset items in there. Some of those items would be determining if the house is a basic house or above average, custom, premium. They can set that number, and then depending on what they select, the amount per square foot goes up or down. So if you're buying a semi-custom home and the company sets it at basic, you very well might be underinsured. Or on the other side of that, if you are buying a standard tract built house and they set it at custom, you may be shocked at how much they're saying that it's going to cost to rebuild the house. So it's not a bad idea to ask for a copy of the calculator as well and just take a look at it, make sure that it's accurate. So that's one way to do it. An insurance company themselves, they're going to require you insure it for 100% of replacement costs, whether you owe any money on it or you don't. And that's because most insurance companies don't settle claims with just a cash payment. They require a rebuild. And so to rebuild that house, they're going to want to make sure that there's the money there to rebuild it. And that's where that cost calculator comes into play. And how they come up with the amount, that calculator, is determined by a top-down rather than a bottom-up build. So when you build a new house, you're building it from the bottom up. So the cost of construction is related to that type of building. Whereas if it's not a total loss, you have to rebuild a house from the top down, which requires sometimes removing the roof, and the cost of labor really inflates when you have to do things like that. So the cost of rebuild is sometimes even higher than the market value. So it just depends on the situation there.
So definitely you need to do your homework and see what that calculator looked like to determine how they were coming up with the number.
Absolutely.
If you say you have a home that's a total loss, say there was a fire and it's a total loss and you were underinsured, what happens?
There are some companies, American Family is one of them, that have a buffer on the policy. So the buffer is typically called extended replacement cost. So if the house is insured originally at 100% of replacement cost, then your agent can offer you an extended replacement cost rider, which is pretty standard on the policy, which gives you a buffer of about 20% in the event that there's a spike in rebuilding costs. So we had a time when there was a hurricane and the cost of lumber really shot up. And it didn't just shoot up in Florida, it shot up in Arizona because the cost of lumber went up because of that hurricane. So in that case, if your house needed to be rebuilt here in Arizona, after the hurricane happened and the cost of lumber had gone up in Florida, the cost to rebuild your house also went up. So having that extended replacement cost on there, that buffer to protect you, is important.
Gotcha. And so say you got your homeowner's insurance many, many years ago and you've just stayed with the same company and, we've seen our regular rate increases and so forth, but say you've done a tremendous amount of remodeling to your home and now your home has more expensive guts, if you will. Is that something you need to reevaluate with your insurance plan to see if now the home, as it's been re-updated, is sufficiently covered? Absolutely.
I would always recommend you talk to your agent every 24 months. And it may not be that you need to make major changes to the insurance policy, but just a little conversation. It could be 15, 20 minutes just to go over if there's been any changes to the house itself. Also, what's changed in the industry. There may be new discounts that are worth talking about. In that situation where you have done some work on the house and the cost of rebuilding it did go up, but you're concerned about the premium going up if you were to raise the amount of insurance, a good way to offset that is just to increase the deductible. So let's say your house costs $75,000 more today than what you have it insured for. A lot easier to come up with an extra $1,500 on your deductible and have a $2,500 deductible instead of $1,000 than it is to come up with $75,000 because you were short on your insurance.
That is such good advice, yes.
So insure it for what it costs to rebuild it and adjust your rate by looking at discounts. American Family has a discount now for Costco members. So look at discounts, and then also look at your deductible. You can control your premium through those areas.
Okay, so thank you, Bryan. So a couple of really good pieces of advice here. One is talk with your insurance agent every couple of years just to make sure you're adequately covered, everything's up to date in terms of your information and coverage. But really good advice there to think about your deductible. Like if you're afraid to go up because you don't want to, spend more, then just up that deductible to bring your monthly premium down. So great advice. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.